Hello, everyone. Welcome to the part 3 of our 4-part series called The Machinery of the Mind. We have been on this series for quite some weeks now. Voila, we are in the 3rd part, and it has been an amazing journey for me. And I want to believe that everyone who has been with us from the very first part of this 4-part series up till now, you have experienced mind shift, and you started to see where you might be perpetuating your own stagnation, right? Where you might be perpetuating your own sabotage, and you've been seeing where you've been compromising. You've been compromising your vision, the possibilities that await you, and your potentials for safety, right? And for comfort, right? Basically. So for the first part of this series, we addressed the mind as a system, and we started to see how that the mind, just like a system, works on 3 parts, right? 3 different layers. And we saw that every system has a structure, every system has a logic, and then every system has a design. The structure of the system, so the structure of the system, right, are the foundational. When we associate it with the mind, we're starting to see the foundational beliefs. We're starting to look into the foundational assumptions, the foundational, beliefs and paradigms that we've held for so long, right? That has been powering our lives unconsciously to us, or to many of us, right? And then we also saw that the mind, acting like a system, also has a logic. And we saw that the logic of every system, including your mind, when you operate like a system, speaks about the rules that governs the operation, right? The rules that ensures that there is predictable outcome, right? And then I also made mention of the fact that the mind also functions with a design. And I said that the design reinforces itself, right? Then we moved to 2 weeks. Like in the second week, we talked about the hidden structure behind the choices that we make. It was there we started to look at the sovereignty architecture model that I created, and I explained the fact that we're only going to be focusing on the middle layer, of which we saw that in the middle layer of the model, right, we have the values, our values, we have our assumptions, and we have our biases, right? So these 3 power chords, like I called it in our last series, work together behind the scene to determine the quality of choices that we make. And so if you've not sat with part 1 and part 2, this is an opportunity for you to go back to part 1, part 2 before coming to part 3. So in this part 3, we're going to be looking at pattern recognition and how patterns play out, basically how patterns play out in our lives. So we're going to be looking at patterns as a whole, right? So when we went from mind as a system to hidden structure behind our choices, and now we are at patterns. And if you follow the series, you will see that every single thing that we've been addressing, they are like layers upon layers. They are foundational, right, to anybody that is going to anyone that is going to play big, anyone that is going to move from the point where they are shrinking themselves and they're sabotaging themselves, instead of rising up to what their potential demands and rising up to what their vision requires, right? Anyone that wants to achieve this outcomes that I've just described needs to be able to understand these layers that we've been addressing. So we are talking about patterns today. So we're going to start with definition and then we would move from there. So what are patterns, right? What are patterns? Now, it is very patterns simply, right? Simply, patterns are programs that run consistently to produce certain outputs. As simple as that. Patterns are programs, right? Not the programs in your mind, right? They're codes in your mind that run consistently to produce certain predictable outputs. Whether or not you like the output, the pattern is not designed to bring about what you like. It's only designed to bring about, to follow the rules that has been installed into you, right? Programmed into you to ensure that the end goal of that rule, the end goal of the programming can be achieved. You see that? So patterns are not flaws. No. Patterns instead are codes. Like I said before, they are codes that were installed into you through repetition, right? Because patterns are not patterns except they happen time and time again. Yes, except they happen time and time again. Patterns are installed into you through repetition, through the reinforcement of an outcome. I gave an instance when I was trying to give a pictorial description of how the mind works as a system in part 1. And I said that when you go to a chocolate factory, the whole machine is designed in such a way that it can move from one stage of production to another, right? And then it continues like that. For every new raw material, raw cocoa that is brought into the factory, the system is designed to follow the same process. So it always ensures that the outcome, the chocolate, right, that is being made from this cocoa is always the same. Is always the same. So patterns in our minds, patterns in our lives run automatically. Right? They run automatically and they do not need your permission. Sadly, that's just the truth. They do not need your permission to run, right? They do not wait for your conscious approval. They just run because they've been programmed to run, right? They just run. So regardless of your willpower, regardless of how you say, oh, I'm not going to do that again, or it's not going to happen to me again, or, you know, I've gotten over it, or this is now what I want, these are my new desires. Unless you are able to recognize the pattern that exists currently in your life and interrupt it, the pattern would keep running, irrespective of, you know, your willpower, your plans, your vision, your goals, or the things that you aspire, who you aspire to become, what you aspire to achieve, and all of that, right? So the patterns, every behavioral pattern has 3 properties. Every behavioral pattern has 3 properties, and we're going to be looking into that shortly. The first pattern, or the first property that every behavioral pattern has, is that it is automatic. There is the automaticity in it. It is automatic. So before you even start to consciously deliberate or start to think to say, no, this, I don't want to do this, or this is not the outcome that I want, it plays out, right? It plays out because it is designed to play out. And we're going to be seeing how patterns are designed to play out, right? Because an understanding of how your patterns, or my pattern, or anybody else's pattern listening to me right now, plays out, starts somewhere. So when you understand the beginning, when you understand the middle, and when you understand the destination, you can interrupt it. There is something I've been saying from part 1 right till this moment, is the fact that when you do not understand a thing, it is almost impossible for you to interrupt it. So what brings about the interruption of anything is that you first of all understand what is. You understand, regardless of whether it's good or not, you understand what is, and then you can interrupt it, and then you can transcend it. Are you seeing that? So the second property of every behavioral pattern is predictability. Every pattern is predictable. Every pattern is predictable. It has the same trigger, it has the same response, and it has the same output. Are you seeing that? So it doesn't matter the context you find yourself, it would always produce it will always produce the same trigger, the same output, and then, the same response, and then the same output. Do you know why? It is because it is tied to an internal system. It's not tied to your environment. So you might go to let's say, for instance, you are in Nigeria or you're in Lagos and you move to Port Harcourt, still the same state within Nigeria, and you will find out that the pattern is still the same. It runs the same way. As long as there is a trigger, it will run. In the same way, when you're Nigerian and you move, let's say you go overseas, you move to Canada, or you move to Japan or China or the US, as long as the trigger exists within the environment, it will go off. The pattern would repeat itself because it's not tied to your environment. It is tied to, the internal system within you. And so the last thing that every system has is every pattern rather has is that every pattern, the last property of every behavioral pattern is that it overrides your capability. So it doesn't care, whether you're capable or not. All it cares about is that it executes what it has been programmed to do. Right? What it has been programmed to do. So when you look at a pattern, your patterns, and you compare it side by side with your desire, regardless of what your desires are. Let's say you're desiring to scale your business as a business owner, right? Your pattern doesn't look at your desire and take the back seat. No, it doesn't allow your desire to win. Instead, it wins. And then your desires take the back seat unless you interrupt the pattern first. In the same way, let's assume you're desiring a promotion. You woman here listening to me, desiring a promotion in your organization. You want to step into you want to move from the level you're currently in your organization or your career and step higher, right? You want to take bigger leadership roles. Your patterns doesn't care about that. Your patterns that cause you to self-sabotage, your patterns that causes you to shrink, your patterns that causes you to dismiss your achievement, dismiss your capabilities, your patterns that causes you to justify the fact that you're not ready. It doesn't look at your desires. It only runs. The only thing it obeys, it's the code. It's what has been programmed into it. Right. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is how patterns override desire. I started explaining it, but now let me go really deep into it. Now, there is, when it has to do with patterns, there would always be a disconnection between this is what I want and this is what is happening. There would always be that disconnection. The reason is because your desires are cognitive. However, your patterns and the way your patterns function, they are somatic and they are automatic. By somatic, it means they are programmed into your body. So you would only, your patterns would only respect what has been programmed into you. It doesn't respect your desires, right? So your desires are cognitive. However, your patterns and the way it functions is somatic And it's automatic. It doesn't wait for your permission. It doesn't know, it doesn't know when to take the back seat. It doesn't know. Because every of our patterns, right? Every of your pattern, it's the goal of every pattern is to keep you safe. The goal, the reason why it was programmed into you was because of the desire to be safe. To be safe, to survive what your mind or your body perceived as a threat. And so even when you are out of that environment of threat, right? Even when you are out of it, it does not recognize the fact that you are no longer within that environment where the threat was. You are now in a different context. It doesn't recognize that. Its job is to keep you safe. And so you must be able to sit to understand how your patterns play out, knowing fully well that its goal is to keep you safe from so many things. It doesn't have to be external danger. It could even be to keep you safe from feeling certain kind of pain, certain kind of hurts, certain kind of intense emotion. Is to keep you safe from it. To keep you safe from what? From failure, maybe. To keep you safe from some kind of people it perceives to be a threat. To keep you safe from them. Because prior to the time it was installed, there was somebody that had that same disposition, that same attitude that felt like a threat to you, that now made you raise your guard, that now made your body, right, write a code that says whenever we see somebody with these characteristics, that person is not safe. Even when the context shifts, that programming, unless it is intentionally rewritten, it will still keep running. It will still keep running. Right. So when we are looking at that disconnection between what you want and what actually happens, right? Your desires and what you actually get, the image you're conceiving in your mind and what you actually birth. When we're looking at the disparity, that disconnection, right? We are saying that the pattern looks at the situation and then looks at that, examines the fact that, or examines the fact that, or asks the question, let me put it this way. It's the pattern looks at the situation and asks the question, can you be safe? Are you safe? If it detects that you're not safe, guess what it's going to do? It's going to immediately go off. It's going to immediately go off. It's the reason why, for instance, you tell yourself, let's say you're listening to me and you're a career professional. You tell yourself, I'm going to put forward my name for the role. I'm going to apply for the opportunity. That's what you desire. But the moment your mind examines the context, examines that opportunity, examines the role, right, and start to see that, oh, we could get hurt in this new role. We could face criticism, right, or we could face a lot of backlash, or people might not like our work, or there'll be too much responsibility, or different ways it plays out. Guess what? You're going to tell yourself, you are going to excuse yourself and tell yourself, no, I need to learn more. No, I need to know I need to go and, take more courses to know how to function in that role when I eventually get it. No, I'm going to need to gain more experience. But guess what? While you are busy negotiating yourself out of what your vision demands while you are busy negotiating yourself out of the relevance that is supposed to be yours. Somebody else that is less competent, somebody else with less capabilities than you, the person is busy charging forward. What's the difference between you and that person? It's because you are succumbing, you are shrinking yourself into the mold that fits what your pattern is dictating. But that person is trying every single thing within, is using every single thing within him or her, right, to go for it. The person is not trying to seek for permission, not even permission from the pattern. But the person realizes that I am capable of doing this. The person realizes I am ready to take it. The person realizes that this is mine. I was born for this. And the person steps into the room with confidence, takes the leadership role, starts the business with so much confidence. And you're wondering, where is the confidence coming from? How come you're doing this? And I know that if I were to be in your shoes, I would have been able to do more. It's not about that. It's about who is succumbing to their patterns and who is insisting that my patterns, the one I built previously that kept me safe, but has now been a hindrance to where I'm going to, will not stop me. That's the difference. Now, there is a gap between desire and action, right? And that gap is what I call the protection protocol, which we're going to see later. We're going to go into it later. Protection protocol. But for now, let us examine how patterns play out in a predictable manner. Remember, I said that what determines the predictability of patterns is that every pattern has the same trigger, the same response, and of course, the same output. And so when you are able to shift the trigger, you shift the response, guess what's going to happen? You are going to change the outcome. This is where a lot of people miss it. They are not able to detect what triggers this. What is the trigger? And so because you're unable to identify what the trigger is, they can't change the response, and so they can't change the output. One of the things that you need to know is that patterns, they run like an algorithm. Of course, you know what an algorithm is. Think about social media. Social media runs with an algorithm. It's the reason why when you like certain posts, you start to see more of that post. Let's assume you go on Instagram and you like, let's say 3 leadership content. You will start to see more leadership content coming your way. It's an algorithm that is playing out. In the same way, your patterns are like algorithms. They function like algorithms, right? They follow a very strict sequence: trigger, response, outcome. Trigger, response, outcome. And so when you track, right, the sequence of a pattern across different contexts, it's always the same. It should tell you something. It should tell you that patterns are systemic. It should tell you that patterns are systemic. They are not situational. They are not something that goes off because you are in a particular context, and then when you're in a different context, it doesn't go off. No. They are systemic, like a system running with rules. And so when you recognize the predictability of that pattern, when you are able to determine its trigger, its response, and then the outcome that it gives you, guess what it does? It puts that pattern into the limelight. It's the reason why I started this machinery of the mind, to be able to put to light our patterns, put to light the hidden structures and the rules that are playing out beneath the scene, that is making us sabotage ourselves, even when it feels like, even when within us we know we could be more, but we cannot attain that more, we cannot become more, we cannot express the full capacity of our vision, our full self, because something else is running behind the scene. It's the essence of this series. So once the predictability is recognized, the pattern loses its invisibility. It can no longer hide. And so because it can no longer hide, guess what? You can interrupt it. You can change it and get a different outcome. So let us talk about the predictability nature of a pattern. It starts with a trigger. Yeah, every pattern starts with a trigger. With a trigger. The trigger could be anything. The trigger could be a situation. The trigger could be a conversation. The trigger could be people. The trigger could be an opportunity. The trigger could be a state. The trigger could be literally anything. And the goal of the trigger is to activate the program, is to activate the code, is to activate the pattern. That's the goal. The goal of the trigger is to activate it, to ensure it comes to life. Right? It could be anything. It could be something as simple as you are told, oh, you're the one that's going to lead this project. The moment you're told that, it becomes an activation system. It activates the trigger, the pattern. And immediately, without you even experiencing the outcome of failure, you already think you're going to fail in that project. It could be anything. It could be you seeing somebody, right, appearing in a certain way, maybe looking more their exterior, maybe the way they present themselves. It feels like, oh, or maybe they present themselves in a certain manner, or carry themselves in a certain way, or have this presence. They command this presence. Guess what? That becomes a trigger for some people to come to the conclusion to say, I'm not qualified. They are more qualified than me. It's a trigger. And so after the trigger comes the response. The response is the automatic behavior, right? The automatic thought that comes to your mind. The automatic action that you display or you carry out. It's it. For instance, let's go back to the project theme. You're told, oh, you're the one that's going to handle this project in this organization, or you're going to lead this team, or you're going to represent us in the next, in the upcoming meeting or the upcoming conference, whatever it is. Or let's say, okay, that's for I'm going to come to business owners, but let me use this example, for instance, for those that are in the career, the professional space. You're going to lead this project. You're going to represent the company in the next meeting that's going to be held in, let's say, UK. This is something you've been desiring because you know you're capable. You know you're capable of handling the project, of being your company's representative. You know all of this. But guess what? You know you are capable of leading the team. But because you have heard, you come in contact with those conversations, you're placed in that situation, that becomes a trigger for a pattern that was formed years before now. Years before now. By your social conditioning, family background, cultural conditioning, all of the conditionings that you've, all of the experiences and the exposure that has now become a conditioning for you, they've created codes upon which your life now runs like a system, such that it becomes impossible for you to even break out of it. Anyways, let me come back to my example. So you were told you're going to represent the company in, in UK or any other country. You're going to lead the project. You're going to lead this team, to do this and that. It becomes a trigger. And guess what you do? You start to rationalize your way. You start to renegotiate and say, I don't think, you start to give excuses as to why it can be you. But deep down, you want it. That's the dilemma. Deep down, you want it. But then there is also a part of you that is rationalizing yourself away. There is also a part of you that is strategizing, shrinking. Because your mind cannot just conceive the fact that you would be in a bigger space. By bigger space, it's not necessarily a room. It's not necessarily a physical environment. By bigger space, I mean something that is just beyond your comfort zone, something that is just beyond how you normally operate, how you normally do things, where you normally go, who you normally mingle with, the kind of opportunities you normally handle. It's just different. So because of that big space, it already becomes unsafe. And so remember the patterns runs to keep you safe. And so when your mind detects that enlargement, that increase, that expansion, even if it's just psychological, it would. Okay, so I was talking about response, right? I was talking about response. Sorry, I got cut off. And I was like, giving the example. So you really want to represent us, but guess what we start to think? Guess what that person starts to think? Oh, we start to rationalize. Our response to that trigger becomes a rationalization of ourselves and what we think is possible for us. A rationalization of it. What we think is possible for us. So how many times, here's my question to you. How many times have you rationalized yourself away? How many times? And then we experience the same outcome. We miss the opportunities. We maintain invincibility even when we have the opportunity to be visible. We maintain invincibility. We preserve being safe, our safety. And guess what? We reinforce the narrative that we are not ready. We reinforce it. Again, patterns do not care about your context. The context can change. The only thing the pattern cares about is the trigger signature, meaning that specific event, that specific situation, that specific conversation, that specific feeling, that specific perception, that specific state of mind that causes it to be activated. That's the only thing it cares about. Now, how does pattern, right, play out? This pattern we've been talking about, how does it play out for women who are including men, but my focus is women because that's the specific people I work with, right? How does it play out in this set of people, right, that now causes them to negotiate themselves out of playing big, negotiate themselves out of greatness, negotiate themselves out of the specific vision of the kind of woman they can be? How does it play out? In such a way that they now start to choose smallness instead of greatness. How? It follows what I call the negotiation arc, where a woman or a person moves from this is what I want, this is what I see, this is the possibility I am perceiving in my mind. This is the potential. This is my potential I'm seeing. This is the vision I'm conceiving in my mind. This is the image of the kind of person I can become. And they reduce it or they shrink it into something that is not the same as that. It follows this negotiation arc. The first thing in the arc is your desire. Oh, I am very sure that you listening to me right now, you know what you want. Sometimes it may not be exactly clear for some set of women, right? But a lot of people that I work with and a lot of women that I've interacted with, they know what they want. Or they know that they want to expand their business, or they know they want to step into bigger leadership role, or they know they want to speak, and some of them know they want to write book. Some of them know they want to start a project, right? A project for children, a project for business owners, a project for executive, a project for boys, a project for a particular community, a project to address a particular challenge. They know, they see it. So they even have the capability. The capability is present. The goal, for some, it's super clear. For some, it is there. Even they can sense it deeply. It's there. So desire is the first part of this arc. The second thing is pursuit. In the arc, pursuit. So what do I mean by pursuit? It is where you get to the point where you start to prepare. You know, I want to start a business to serve, let's say, underserved children in the Sahara region. Or I want to write a book to teach children about sex education. Or I want to maybe, let's say, for instance, I want to create story to teach children about virtues, having certain virtues like being good, being kind, being patient, loving their neighbors in such a way that is fun to read, and and they're learning the lessons. Or I want to start a community that can help specific business owners in this industry. I want to be able to create support for them, network. So you have these goals, and then you move into preparation. You move towards it. You start to plan. Some of us will never get out of the preparation stage. We are always preparing. Where it feels like, and that is a stumbling block. That is a way to excuse yourself. It's an intelligent way, but it's still an excuse nonetheless. Where you feel you have to be 100% ready before you can seize the opportunity. It's an excuse because you can't. Then what's the relevance of growth? Because hope you know that your vision is not just something you execute and you birth in the world. It is also a system to expand you growth-wise. So if you need to be 100% ready before you take action, then you are trying to eradicate any slight opportunity for you to grow. And so it's an excuse, right? It's an excuse. Then I'm going to be talking about the third one, which is the negotiation point. Pay attention to this. The negotiation point is that point where a lot of women, a lot of people get to, right? Particularly women, where somewhere along their journey, remember, you have a goal, you have a vision, you've conceived an image of the future, you are capable of doing certain things, and you're preparing, you're planning, and all of that. And then somewhere along that journey, the system activates, triggered by something, either an event, a conversation, a thought, a person, maybe something you heard, something you saw, whatever it is, it triggers it. And so you remember an incident that happened, maybe when you were young or in the past somewhere, where something like this played out. Maybe you failed, and how it felt failing, and you interpreting it as you being a failure, or you being in that situation and you thinking you're not enough, or someone telling you that nothing good can come out of you. So you are in a different context along the journey that you are making towards birthing your vision, towards becoming the woman you can be. You remember that event, you remember a similar situation, the trigger goes off. And so when the trigger goes off, the system is activated. And when the system is activated, the internal dialogue that begins the negotiation starts. It's when you start to have thoughts like, am I truly ready? Who says you're not ready? Or you start to have thoughts like, maybe I should wait for a particular condition when I'm in a particular state. Or maybe I should wait till when I've gotten extra certificates. Or maybe I should wait till when I've read all of the books that are available on that particular topic before I can start. Or maybe I should wait till when I've gotten I've attended another leadership program. Or maybe I should wait till I've taken another course that can teach me on how to start a business. Maybe I should wait. You start to negotiate yourself, negotiate the situation. Or some of us even go and say, maybe it's better if somebody else just does it. Maybe it's better if somebody else just leads it. Maybe it's better if somebody else just takes the opportunity. Maybe it's better if somebody else just takes the stage. Maybe it's better if somebody else just, does the project. Within that negotiation circle, we arrive at the fourth point, which is where we now renegotiate. This is where we now make a conclusion in the negotiation process. And it's the point where we now downgrade our desires, where we now lower our standard, where we now start to extend the timeline and say, oh, I'm going to do it next year. I'm going to do it 6 months from now. The question is, why can't you do it now? If you really sit into all of your excuses, you will realize all of the reasons, you will realize that they are just excuses to ensure that you never take up space, you shrink and remain in the mold. Now, the goal of this conclusion that you have gotten to is to reach, the goal is to ensure that you fit within the bandwidth, the threshold of the system, because going out of it means you are unsafe. And when your body or your mind starts to feel that lack of safety, the pattern goes off. And the final point in the negotiation arc is smallness. It's when you deliver, but you too, it's not up to a fraction of what you are capable of. It is when you show up, but you know that there is the gap between what you want and what you have accepted as the new norm. There is a gap. It's the way the cycle reinforces itself. It reinforces itself. It reinforces itself. Let us talk about how, why the pattern keeps running. I said I was going to talk about the threat. I said earlier that the pattern runs because it perceives a threat. Threat in a person, a people, an environment, a conversation, a situation. It perceives a threat. So why do these patterns run? What exactly are they protecting you from? What exactly are your patterns protecting you from? Number one, your pattern is protecting you from, first thing, a primary threat. What is the primary threat? It's the threat that is definitive, like it's a definitive failure, right? A threat that attacks you on the level of identity. A threat that attacks you on the level of identity. It's that it's that threat that says, if you pursue this goal, if you go at it in your full capacity, you will fall short. And when you fall short, it will crack your identity and then confirms a thought that has been planted in you long ago that makes you think that you were never actually enough. It will confirm it. It's the reason why I continue to push for identity reclamation. For anyone who wants to do some, who wants to play big, for anyone who wants to step into the next level of their leadership, either in career, in business, in their life, whatever aspect, you must insist on reclaiming your identity. You must insist on letting go of certain narratives and stories that you have allowed to define your being. You must let them go. You must let them go. Another kind of threat is the threat of visibility. A threat of visibility. It's where we start to expect, right? Or where we start to think that when we succeed, when we go at our full capacity, a lot of expectations were placed on us, or we will face a lot of criticism. We may not be able to find safety in our invincibility anymore. The invincibility that the system relies on. We may not be able to find comfort or find space for it. That's another threat. Oh, there is a threat of if I show up in my full strength, if I really go at full scale, what I'm imagining in my mind, if I really become the woman that I see myself, I see that I can be. People are not going to love me anymore. People will start to think that I am too much. I'm going to lose certain relationships. That threat is what activates the system. The system triggers the pattern. The activated system triggers the pattern and causes you to get the same result. Causes you to get the same result. Are you seeing that? As we come to the close of this class, I would want us to look at one more aspect, right? Which has to do with catching this negotiation before it completes. Because the moment you can catch the negotiation, the negotiation arc process, you can interrupt it. And when you interrupt it, guess what happens? You can decide a different response. You can choose a different response. And when you choose a different response, you are going to get a different outcome. You're going to get a different outcome. So every pattern, right? I told you that the negotiation process, it starts with a desire. Then it moves to pursuit, where you start taking action, no matter how little. Even if it's an action as simple as planning, thinking in your mind and planning it. Then along the way, the negotiation cycle begins. That now leads you to a renegotiation, which is the conclusion of the process of negotiation that you were being a part of a processing in your heart, eventually it leads to smallness, where what you produce, it's almost inconsequential to what you could actually produce. The woman who you truly are within can birth. Who you become, the space you take, it's almost inconsequential to who she can, or the space that she could actually take, or who she could actually express herself as, or who you could actually express yourself as. When the negotiation starts, when the trigger starts, usually it starts in your body. So somebody reached out to me some weeks ago or some months ago, and they found out that when a particular lady reached out to me, and she was like, oh, I noticed that whenever I am within this particular space, I'm bold, I speak out, right? But whenever I find myself in this particular environment, because of someone that I happen to respect in that space, somehow I can't help but just shrink myself. I can't help but just go into my shell. Not literally though. And I told her, I spoke with her, and one of the things that I told her to do is, next time when she's in that space, she should notice how her body starts to contract. Yes, it's one of the ways that shrinking play out. How that your body literally starts to contract, shrink. Initially, you may be all lively and jovial, but the moment that person comes, the moment you are in that situation, all of a sudden you go quiet. All of a sudden, it seems like you've lost your voice. All of a sudden, it seems like you are closing in. You want to pay attention to that. Sometimes it feels like your chest is tightening. There is a drop in your stomach, right? All of a sudden, it feels like all your energy is gone. You're suddenly tired. You're exhausted. You want to pay attention to how it plays out in your body so you can interrupt it. Some of us would even want to, there is the urge to physically withdraw, to get out of that space. You want to pay attention. It's the survivor system activating itself. Because when you notice it, right, you can then interrupt it. When it feels like, oh, you have that urge to want to physically withdraw, you can insist on staying. And when you insist on staying and going through that process, what you're actually doing is you are actually rewriting the code, rewriting the script. Or when it feels like, oh, I don't want to speak up in the meeting, or I don't want to share my ideas, or I don't know, I don't want to start the business. Let me just stay in the mode of learning and preparing. And you eventually go out to say, I'm starting a business. Even when your body is rebelling and saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. The survival system is shouting, don't do it, don't do it. It's unsafe, it's unsafe. You insist. It's the reason why I tell the people I work with, you must insist on being the undiminished woman. You must insist. The undiminished woman insists that she's not going to be less. She is a rebel to conditioning, a rebel to narrative, a rebel to script that wants to keep us small, right? A rebel to any ideology that wants to diminish her. So you must learn how to be a rebel, literally. You must learn how to be a rebel. So pay attention to see how it's playing out. Then the next place you want to pay attention, apart from your body, your bodily response, how it's being played out in your body. You want to pay attention to how it's being played out in your mind. In your mind, look at all of the times where you justified yourself, right? Or you justified a situation. You provided accurate justification. And you say, oh, maybe I should not do it now. And there was accurate justification for it. But guess what? It's the system trying to play out. Or maybe you told yourself, oh, I need to collect more data. But what you have is something you can use to take the first step. It's the negotiation process being activated so you can be small, so you can go back into the mode that fits within the threshold of what has been programmed into you. Anything outside it, it's a danger zone. And when it's a danger zone, the pattern goes off, because the goal of the pattern is to keep you safe. It's to keep you safe. The next thing is you want to check the actions that you're taking. These are ways you can catch yourself. Oh, you saw an opportunity and you're trying to write an email to apply for it. And so all of a sudden you stopped and you no longer sent it. And it becomes a draft that sits in your draft section for eternity. Some of us even delete it. Or you saw someone you've been admiring, you want to collaborate with in your business, or you want to learn under. You were typing the email to send to the person to say, oh, or writing the message on WhatsApp or Instagram or wherever. Oh, I love your work. I would love to, come learn under you, or love you to be a mentor of mine, or I would love us to collaborate. And you just stop because that pattern tells you, who are you to tell that person to come and collaborate with you? What do you know? What if you fail? And all of the things, all of the voices, and all of the thoughts that start to go in your mind. And so you pause. Or you start to speak up in a meeting or share your ideas in a particular platform or in a particular gathering you're in, and you don't even trust yourself enough. You hesitate. You hold yourself back. You start a sentence, but you can't even finish it. And they're asking you, oh, you wanted to say something. You say, no, I don't want to say something. You have something to say. And then let's assume somebody else says it, and everyone was like, oh, that's a beautiful idea. And you started to say to yourself, that's just what I wanted to say. But you didn't say it. You negotiated yourself out of visibility at that moment. You negotiated yourself out of sharing your ideas that would have moved the project forward. You negotiated yourself because you chose to be a slave to the pattern than choosing to submit to your highest expression and your highest vision. But guess what? Between the pattern and the completed behavior, which is the smallness, which is the shrinking, there is the pause. There is always the pause. Before you go in the path of the trigger or in the path of the system being activated, what I call the signal, before you succumb to it, there is the pause. In that moment, in that pause, in that moment where you pause, you can choose a different response. You can, because for every time you choose a different response than what the pattern dictates for you, you rewrite the code. You rewrite the code. And when you consistently rewrite the code, guess what happens? You can expand. I said it before in the last class, that's the part 2. I said your world, your external world, would expand to the degree to which your internal world expands. Your external world would expand to the degree to which you expand within. Do not expect the world to expand to you when you've not expanded within. It's the reason why I continue to advocate that women play bigger. But the first step to doing that is to reclaim your identity, is to ensure that you rewrite the narrative, is to ensure that you rebel against your conditioning, is to ensure that you insist you will not be a diminished woman. You will be undiminished. You will choose not to be lessened, not to be small, and not to shrink. So we've come to the end of part 3. I really hope that, it was helpful to you. and you learned a great deal from all of the things that I've shared. I'm going to be handling the last part of this series, and making it available for you so that you can watch, because in that series, the last part, I'm going to be teaching you, or one of the things I'm going to be talking about is how to reclaim back your power. How to reclaim back your power. If this series has been helpful to you and you would love to go deeper with me, ensure that you join my community. It is free. The link is going to be dropped in the description box. Do well to click it and join my community. I'm going to see you in the next class. Have a wonderful day.